Hello and welcome to the SFCA podcast. Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer. From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho and everywhere in between. Miami is a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We truly appreciate your continued support on this, our 43rd call of this presentation, and it's the last one for the year. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome on the call. We share facts, figures, and stats of South Florida tourism. We also have some entertaining information and facts we hope you will enjoy. We do have some gas cards to give away, 2 of them to be exact, after Andrew's presentation as well as Ceci's presentation. We will be giving away the gas cards. You need to answer the question, be the first to answer in the chat, and you win. If you do win, keep in mind that you disqualify yourself from the other contest, because we want to make sure we give everyone an equal opportunity. So as I said earlier, only Ceci and Andrew are on the call. They're jam-packed with information. I know Ceci's got a lot of information regarding end of year and all the activations in South Beach, and Andrew has a bunch of information as well. So with that, I turn it over to Andrew. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Ready for the holidays?
Man, am I ever. I was saying to somebody last week, because these things take quite a bit of time to prepare. I said, after Monday, don't even call me, because I'm not going to be available. Okay. Full disclosure, I won't be working that much. Okay. I'm just going to say that, as will many other people not be working that much either. So I won't feel that bad, but I think like everybody else, I'm ready to relax.
Exactly. Enjoy the holidays. And the weather is gorgeous. And it's going to get even better. It's actually finally cooling down. I wish it would stay for longer, though.
And no rain.
So question for you, Andrew, before you start your presentation. Yes or no? Basel was the same as last year?
I do have some information on Basel, and it was overall good Basel.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get started then. We see you. You're ready to go.
All right, folks. Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Whew, it's the end of the year. Like I said, I'll be looking forward to this year. It's been a long year, a little stressful at times, but overall a good year. And certainly when it comes to tourism, a very good year overall. So we'll talk about the things that we talk about normally every month. I'm going to give you, again, much like we normally talk about. We talk about economics, but we also talk about some of the developments here in our neck of the woods, as well as how we're doing. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about the things in the future that we can look for, which I think a lot of you come here and look for, is the future information. So I think I have a lot to cover today. Every month as I compile this information, I have to pull away so much because I end up getting so much together that it would just take too long. So I could go on and on and on with some of the things that are going on, but overall, it's not a bad picture. But let's go in to talk about some economics first. Actually, no, let me take that back a step. I'm going to talk about something I came across. As you folks know, I like to sometimes come up with some arcane statistics and things that maybe give a different side of life or different side of things. So there was a company I found out about recently called a Beer Board. And for those of you in the restaurant industry, you might be familiar with Beer Board. Beer Board actually measures beer coming out of taps in certain places, certain establishments around the country. So interesting stuff. While it may not seem interesting to some people, I like it because it gives you an idea of what people are doing in bars, which is important. So let's talk about drinking for a moment here. For some of you, maybe more than others. However, as we're seeing here, that Thanksgiving this year, according to Beer Board, was not the Thanksgiving that they thought it would be. And as we know, the biggest part of the year is the night before Thanksgiving. And as they said here, draft volume saw a second consecutive dip of 2.5% compared to the same night in 2022. And in 2022, we were down a lot. That's really interesting to me. And why that is, I don't know. I can only speculate. Is it economics? I don't know. I mean, in economics, I remember my economics classes in college, they talked about things called elasticity of demand. And they talked about things in terms of the change in prices and consumption. A lot of things, when you change the prices, consumption will change appropriately. But when it comes to alcohol, is one of those things that they call a relatively inelastic product, in that when you change the prices, oftentimes it doesn't really change consumption. Consumption stays constant. But that said, we are seeing a lot less people drinking. I don't know what it is. Are you just getting healthier, or is it that your budgets aren't holding? I don't know. But maybe you folks need to go out there, drink a little bit more, and then we'll see some better numbers for Thanksgiving. Interestingly enough, down there, the top 10 draft brands poured nationally. The top 5 actually changed the rank here. So Michelob was the number 1, followed by Miller Lite. Bud Light, not a good year for Bud Light for a number of reasons. As we can see here, that just continued to pace out for them on Thanksgiving Eve. Bud Light coming in 3, being displaced by Michelob and Miller Lite. So there you go. Let's talk a little bit about economics. And let me just, okay. So I've shared some of these charts, similar charts, in the past several months. I think it's interesting to watch how much money people have sitting around, excess savings, as they call it in economics, as well as what the inflation looks like, because we know they're related. To the left is what people have in terms of excess savings by their income quartile. So the upper quartile is the highest earners and the lowest is the lowest. And then you can see what their approximate savings, excess savings is, and over a time period at the beginning of 2020 to the second half of 2023. And what you can see is that we are at a high point in the middle of 2021 in terms of savings, but that has rapidly decreased in the last year. And what we see here is, across all 4 quartiles, we see a decline that's half of what it was just over a year ago. So savings are declining. However, it doesn't mean that there isn't savings left that people can't spend. And we'll talk about spend in a moment, but that's really where we see people at in terms of their savings. To the right, headline and core inflation. As you folks may know, headline and core inflation are similar, but with headline, they include food and energy. Without headline, it's a core. And why is that? Well, because food and energy tend to be more volatile, and that can pull the number up and down in a skew. So what we see here is that inflation, as we know, peaked last year, and it's going down, inflation year over year, let's call it that, because prices aren't going down, but the rate of inflation is going down. What we see here is that the forecast, where that line is, they say it's going to come down the next year, but if you really follow it out here, you may have heard that the Fed's target is 2%. They want to lower it to 2% inflation. But if we were to follow this forecast, it would suggest that we won't see that until sometime in 2026. So I would hope they're wrong here, but that's what they're forecasting right now. And I think some of the stats out there would show that there's an argument for that. Moving forward here. Hold on. There we go. So sentiment, and this is a report done by Experian. If you are interested in this report, you can scan to the upper right-hand corner there. The QR code will take you to this full report. But they put on an interesting webinar recently about the state of economics here, and I thought this was an interesting slide. They talked about sentiment to the left and the right. To the left is consumer sentiment, consumer and small business sentiment, I should say, compared to the beginning of 2020. And then to the right is consumer spending behavior compared to the beginning of 2020. And how are we doing? Well, to the left, we see that, and this is really interesting in that while people are spending an awful lot, optimism is not there. And it has steadily dropped, and particularly with consumer optimism, which is really has dropped to a year ago, it dropped to 50%, dropped to 50, basically half of what it was in the beginning of 2020. And even when it comes to small business, it's still lagging. It's still quite a bit. It has steadily gone down in the last 2 to 3 years. To the right, though, spend has gone up. And even, for example, that dotted line shows purchases like watches and jewelry and so forth have they really spiked, right? In the beginning, in mid 2021 into 22, they spiked. I know a lot of people had a lot more money in their pockets. There was a lot of government spending, aid and so forth, which put more money into people's pockets. In addition, people have been working from home. So that certainly puts a couple of dollars more into your pocket if you have a long commute. But what we see here is that spending has continued to be on the rise. Overall, 10%, looks like 10% more than what it was in the beginning of 2020. So is that good or bad? Well, it depends on who you're talking to and what the ultimate goal is. And some of that really could just be inflation. driven. How much of that I can't really say because I didn't put this together. But I think the story here is that people, despite their optimism, which does not appear to be great, are still spending money. And that is to us what's most important. I shared this slide back in August because it was sort of ominous, but there was a point on this slide that stuck out to me that I think we can talk about today. This was an economist that I heard back in August at an event that I went to, and he was pretty much gloom and doom. And he said when he gave this forecast, he said, "I hope I am wrong," but this is what he saw, and he was basically saying that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. However, that fourth point in blue is what I wanted to point out because I think that's really this is what he said was important, and I think that this is really where we're focused. At some point, the Federal Reserve will stop raising rates, and that will represent a key inflection point for the economy. So that's the big question. At some point, when is that point? When will they stop raising rates, right? And then, of course, more importantly, when will they start cutting rates? That will be hopefully when we start to see a much stronger recovery. So as you know, every month I go through a lot of different articles. I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I could not decide which article to get. So I gave you four. And you can certainly chase these down in your free time. There's links to every single one of these. I'm not going to go through all the specifics. But this is, after looking at these four articles, the headline I wrote at the top is what I think is going on. The battle between inflation and interest rates may signal where we are headed, right? And it really looks like a battle, right? So with inflation and interest rates, there is a correlation. However, those things can still not necessarily agree with each other. The Fed, in order to try to control inflation, will try to raise those interest rates. But at the same time, we have other factors going on that are contributing to inflation. So it may not work, right? So the Fed just recently, actually just about a week ago, was saying that they're indicating that they are going to do 3 cuts coming in 2024. That's really interesting because that would indicate that potentially inflation they believe will be under control. So that is one viewpoint, that 3 cuts could be coming. The second point there was another article, the Fed Watcher, who called the 2007 housing bubble, thinks interest rates are going to stay high for much, much longer. And again, you can read that article, but as he said, it's about history. The history would show that they will stay around for, he does believe that inflation will still stick around and interest rates will, of course, relatively high. And then the last two, U.S. labor market, as they said here, defies slowdown forecasts and broad strengthening. So the whole point of the whole point of raising interest rates is to try to cut down inflation, and when you do that, it's not all good, right? But one of the points of raising inflation, it's Monday morning, when they want to raise the interest rates in order to cut down on really what essentially is productivity and taking money out. And that is supposed to cut down on productivity. And so we're not supposed to see a pickup in productivity. So apparently, according to what they're seeing, we have seen some strengthening in the economy. So it's actually going the opposite way of where they said they wanted to go. So that might be another reason why they are not going to cut interest rates. And then finally here, you can look and see here that the inflation breakdown for November is still, the consumer price index is rising essentially the same level as it was last month. But they mention here that inflation, in their words, are gradually moderating, and some of that really is just driven by lower gasoline prices. So a number of different tales here all saying the same things. Where are we going to go? Well, let's just watch and see maybe when they start to lower interest rates, we can be more positive. Let's take a moment to talk about international traveler sentiment. I picked this study because, full disclosure, before I came to this organization, I worked for a research company that did a lot of research for the Brand USA. And the Brand USA is our destination marketing organization for our country, not just our city here. So they are very focused on driving tourism to the United States. And so they do a lot of research. And this study stuck out to me because it is so big. And what they did is they surveyed 25 different markets. Upper right-hand corner shows you 1,000 respondents in each one of these markets around the world. So many of them are our top markets that I thought it's relevant to us. And what I did is I picked two questions out of this survey to talk about briefly. Top left, top destination visitation considerations. So what are these international travelers looking for in a destination? What are those top considerations? And at the top of their list is price. It's price far and above most of these other considerations, but it's price of the overall trip, followed by ease of travel, natural features, landscapes, leisure attractions, and so forth. that is what's on top of mind. However, to the right and the bottom here are the top barriers. So these are things that they consider that would stop them from picking a destination. So number one concern was personal safety concerns, far and above anything else, but also crowdedness, lack of information, cleanliness. These are all things they've been surveying for years. However, some interesting things popped out here. I thought it was interesting to note that, according to respondents, 1/3 said that political climate not aligning with their personal views might be a reason why they would not book to a destination. I thought that was really that stuck out. And then one more thing here, down towards the bottom, environmental responsibilities and efforts. So, in other words, sustainability. So there's a lot of talk about sustainability. I'm going to mention sustainability a little bit more in a moment, but I've seen a lot of research around sustainability, and I think that there are disconnects when it comes to this type of topic here, because when somebody says sustainability, like in a survey, for example, they say, how much are you for a sustainability destination? People are going to say, oh, absolutely. But then when you define what sustainability is, they may not really understand it. And that's where I think as marketers, we need to think about when we talk about sustainability, make sure that when you're marketing a product or service, that if you're going to say you're sustainable, you need to really understand what it is that your customers really look at as what is sustainability, because that could be different for one type of customer. It could be cleanliness in a destination. Another would be, are they recycling? Are they recycling their food? Are they is it their buildings? Whatever it is that they consider to be sustainable, I think is really important, because there's a lot of buzz around it, but I think it needs context if you're trying to market in this space. So I've neglected the cruise industry, so I decided I would spend a little bit more time to talk about the cruise industry, and we see some interesting trends going on right now. As we know, it's really busy. Some interesting things that came out of this article was they talked about younger cruisers are really chomping at the bit to go cruising, and even almost 3/4 of these travelers who never took a cruise would now consider doing so. So what is the cruise industry doing to attract these people and retain those people? They are starting to change their itineraries to offer both shorter and longer term. So while the average cruise length seems to be around 7 days, they are offering a variety of options to try to capture these different audiences. Next point, cruise travelers and potential new to cruise are becoming more interested in sustainability, just like I said, than they were 3 years ago. So what are the cruise lines doing? They're offering environmental education, so AKA defining what that means, as well as sustainable tour experiences for passengers. Another trend that's emerged, solo cruise travel. In response, the cruise lines are building more single cabins in their ships, and they're also retrofitting some of their current ships to cut down some of these bigger spaces and offer additional cabins that are going to be designed for solo travelers. And then finally, they're talking about expedition cruising has just taken off. This interest, these people seek more immersive, is responsible bucket list travel experiences. That trend has doubled from 2016 to 2022. So what are they doing? Cruise lines are offering more immersive cruise travel opportunities. Demand, just touch on this. So this article, the demand for taking a cruise might be unprecedented level, but it's coming at a cost, literally. So not going into too much detail here, but the demand has been incredible in the cruise industry, but the prices are also going up. And so the concern here that some of these industry experts and CEOs are saying is that, yeah, we're seeing a huge profit, right? We're seeing our pricing way above it ever was, and we're actually filling the occupancy. But we are worried that if cruise pricing continues to be high, we're going to start to price out people that look at cruising as a greater value for lower and moderate budget travelers. So what they're saying that if pricing doesn't show at least some signs of easing, they may start to feel that they will start to lose business when people start looking at land-based vacations instead of cruising. A news release came out recently. Perhaps you're aware that Port Miami, which is the cruise capital of the world, had record passengers, 7.3 million passengers. It's a record for fiscal year 2023, a 7% over the previous record, which was 2019. So absolutely amazing. Last year we got edged out by Port Canaveral, and this year we are back to our number one spot. The reason for this is that we've offered a ton of new ships. Not going to read through all of them, but I will say one thing sticking out. Next month, Royal Caribbean is going to have their Icon of the Seas, which is the largest cruise ship in the world. That's going to set sail from the port. So that is really exciting news, as well as we are seeing a lot of building of terminals. We've already had a number of terminals new terminals built at Port Miami, but we're also seeing some new ones that are coming down the pike, such as MSC Cruises. Looking at cruise ship passenger capacity, essentially, here is some recent data I pulled that shows what that capacity looked like in 2023 and 2024. We're seeing about 11% capacity increase. So some of those cruise lines are going up, some are going down. As I mentioned, Icon of the Seas is going to really hopefully increase that capacity quite a bit. However, one is missing from 2024, and that would be Disney. Disney is not sailing out of Port Miami this coming year. Why? Don't ask me. I don't know. They are going up to Fort Lauderdale. I do know that. So other than that story, we are seeing an awful lot of positive activity at Port Miami. On the air front, Delta Airlines is increasing their capacity to a number of different cities by 27% in 2024. So that's great news. And for those of you that have been following along on tourism, we know that we've been building on our domestic visitation. In the last couple of years, we have seen a huge bump in domestic visitation. And we're actually, I believe we're going to continue to see that bump. And a lot of that's going to be for things like Delta and other airlines that are increasing their flight options to Miami. So this is also good news. As I've shared in the last several months, other airlines have been doing the same thing, and Delta is following suit. Some hotel performance here for the last 28 days. Overall, it's a good story. We were about flat on occupancy across the county. That's really good. That's bolstered. That's good demand being shown over the last month. Our ADRs have been lagging. If you look at some of our sub-regions, not going to go into a lot of detail here. You'll have this deck to go through. But certain areas of our county, like Coconut Grove, Aventura, and Coral Gables, really popped out. And in terms of revenue per available room, Aventura, Central Dade, Coconut Grove, even downtown Miami actually saw year-over-year increases. And then when we're comparing to the north and the south, we have Broward, who actually did better than us in terms of gains in overall occupancy. Their room rates also suffered like we did. But going south, the Florida Keys actually did exceptionally well. They increased their occupancy an awful lot over the last 28 days versus the last 28 days last year. And even their ADR actually held. Art Week, as was mentioned at the beginning of this call. How did we do for Art Week? Well, I looked at Art Week this last 7-day period versus Art Week from the prior year. Now, understand that I had to do that because the weeks actually switched in 2023 and 22. So I just switched them around compared to Art Week. The good story here is that our occupancy, which is driven by number of rooms sold, was extremely positive throughout the week. And we saw quite a bit of gain. Overall, for the week from Sunday to Saturday, we saw 3.7% increase in occupancy. So congratulations. Thank you. Hoteliers did a great job at filling those rooms, more than it was the previous Art Week. And we can see here, as to be expected, ADRs were not very strong. They were not what we would have liked to have seen. But again, the bigger story here is that occupancy was really great. Now, when I forecasted this a couple of weeks ago, before the Art Week, I actually was forecasting below what it actually did. So I would say that's good when I forecast and actual results are higher than that. Looking ahead here, looking at on the left here is what we have in terms of what's on the books for hotel occupancy from today all the way through New Year's Day. That's on the left. On the right would be the projected passenger volume at the MIA by date. On the left here, we can see that we're actually doing really well. We're filling up the rooms from now through the end of the year. And for the most part, on par or better than last year. So that is just fantastic news. And to the right, they're anticipating similar amounts of increases in terms of the number of passengers that are coming in through MIA. So in other words, we do see an awful lot of activity right now through the end of the year, which is very consistent with what we've seen in prior years. And then, as you've seen, many of you have already seen this chart. I'll keep on sharing it because I like it. But looking at the next 12 months in terms of what's on the books right now for the upcoming 12 months, it's a really great story. So what we see here is that for the first 5 months of next year, we actually see more bookings right now than we did the same time 1 year ago. And so that is a very strong indicator of how we're going to be doing in the upcoming year, at least for the first part of it. There's nothing negative right now on the horizon that we can see in terms of overall bookings. So that is really great. That is a testament to the strength of Miami, potentially in the face of other economic factors, particularly across other destinations. My visitor forecast. Now, I'm going to share with you this information. Nobody else has this yet. This is my overnight visitor forecast for the upcoming year. Now, it's overnight. We do have day visitors. And so the whole story is not here. We don't share our full year numbers, just so anybody here knows. We don't share our full year visitor numbers until May. That's because the data doesn't come in some cases till April, and as well as the fact that we are the ones that make that announcement. And actually, the mayor of Miami-Dade also wants to make that announcement. So I don't want to put that out here without having some context. But I am going to share with you what we forecast in terms of how we did this year for overnight visitor versus what we're going to be like next year. So the short of it is we believe that overnight visitation is going to be very close this year as it was to last year. So we did see some decline in terms of domestic visitation, but that was to be expected. It's not huge, but we did see a corresponding increase in the international visitation. So we see it's just about flat. We would say we'll be just about flat for 2023 versus 22, which is still great. That's still essentially a record. And then looking ahead, we anticipate right now that our overnight visitation is going to be for 2024 is going to actually do much better than this year at up 1.3%. So again, that's a really good story here. This is not the complete picture. I will say, without giving away numbers, that our day trip volume this year was substantial. And I think it's going to offset any type of potential loss, so to speak, in terms of overnight visitors. So the big story is that I believe we did better this year on overall volume than we have in any other year. And then finally, a few things to touch on here. 3 events coming up here that I think are really important, particularly if you're a hotelier or anybody relying upon this business. Formula One is coming back for the 3rd year in May, followed by Copa in June and July. And then finally, that woman down at the bottom, Taylor Swift, will be bringing her Swifties in October. That might seem like a long ways away, but it will be here before we know it. I picked these 3 events for a reason. And that reason being, aside from the fact that they're very big events, is that they are all taking place at the Hard Rock Stadium in the northern part of our county. So why is that important? Well, we're in Miami. What is next to the Hard Rock Stadium, just a few miles away, would be Broward County and more specifically Fort Lauderdale. And why is that important? Well, we compete with Fort Lauderdale. Now, maybe in some areas we don't, but when it comes to something like this, there's going to be that many people coming into this area. We are going to be competing again with Fort Lauderdale. And that is a tough thing. And any of you who are in the hotel business understand that the last couple of years with F1, which I'll share in a moment, is that we are at times losing, I hate to say it this way, but we are losing that share of demand at times with Fort Lauderdale. And that has a lot to do with these rates. And I'm not saying lower your rates. I'm not a hotelier. You do whatever you want. But I am pointing out here that there are some learnings that we have. And as we look forward, each one of these events brings a lot of people in. F1, we've had 2 years now of learnings here to see what that strategy has looked like and how well it's fared for us in Miami, as well as how Broward fared. And then we're going to see, particularly with Taylor Swift, that is going to be a massive event that is definitely going to be looking, our visitors, they don't look at county lines. They just look at an area and they look at a place to stay. Well, again, the competition in Fort Lauderdale, I believe, is going to be fierce this year. And you'll see in a moment how we've done with some of these other events. I've shared this slide multiple times. I decided to share it again. Not going to go through every single stat on the slide, but this is Formula One. This is how we did for the last 2 years in comparison to 2019 Formula One time. And what we saw here is, we saw really great increases in ADR across the board here. But for Miami on the top versus Fort Lauderdale on the bottom, well, where we maybe fell short a little bit was on that demand side, the number of rooms sold. In terms of increases year over year, it was Fort Lauderdale that was much, much more able to increase their overall share as opposed to us. That's important, right? Because we know there's a delicate balance there of selling rooms as well as keeping your ADRs up. But this is just the numbers. You can take this for what it is. I think that this year we did better in terms of selling rooms than we did last year during Formula One. But if you can see, if you go down to the bottom, so did Fort Lauderdale quite a bit. So those are words of the wise. Finally, Taylor Swift. I mentioned Taylor Swift. Well, just to give you an idea of the impact of Taylor Swift, it should not be understated in terms of how much. It's like a mini Super Bowl that comes into town. So what I've done is I've picked 4 different cities that are of comparable size to us and how they did during that time period of Taylor Swift. And then that final column is just us in this last October, because we're going to be seeing Taylor Swift come here with the Swifties at the same time period in 2024. And that will be the benchmark, I guess, we'll be looking at. But if you look at those 4 cities to the left, I mean, it's just huge. and it's gains across the board. In some cities like Tampa, just I mean, look at the occupancy. The occupancy in Tampa was over 90%, and on a Friday was 94.5%. Essentially, you couldn't find a hotel room in Tampa during those days. Similarly, although much less in Atlanta in terms of the overall occupancy, if you look at the rates down at the bottom, the rates and the RevPAR are really where it's at, and you can see just massive growth across the board. So let's keep an eye on this. Let's think about our strategies moving forward. Again, the challenge, as I've mentioned several times, and we'll continue to mention that, will be its close proximity to Broward County and competing with the properties up there. Finally, just our little recap here. Inflation is going to be around for a while. We don't know whether they're going to cut interest rates or not, but we're just going to have to just wait it out and see. Consumers are still going to spend. It looks like affluent consumers still have the most to spend, and this is in the face of what we talked about, declining optimism and their purchasing power. Folks, we're well poised for tourism. We're doing better in a lot of ways than other places around the country. I believe we will continue to do so. Our cruise industry, as I mentioned, and also our capacity at our airport continues to feed into that. We've seen this consistently going on, and I believe it'll continue to be a good story. Hotel performance, as I mentioned, was as expected. Art Basel, Art Week was overall a good week, and the positive story was room demand. And then looking ahead, the pace and forecasting looks pretty good, but we're going to have to look out for these events, particularly as we get towards places like Taylor Swift. So I've said a lot here. I will stop there. And folks, this will be the last one of the year, but I wish you all a very happy holiday and very restful. Spend some time with your families and enjoy it. That's all I really have.
Excellent. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation, Andrew. You have a question for the group, a trivia question?
I do. So we talked about the cruise industry. This needs to be a complete answer. What is the biggest cruise ship in the world? Biggest cruise ship in the world.
All right, let's see. I kind of see Disney and MSC, Allure, Icon of the Seas, Icon of the Seas, Icon.
Okay. The correct answer was Icon of the Seas.
Icon of the Seas. So it looks like Louisa. Let me just double check. Oh, no, wait. Jennifer got it.
All right.
Awesome. Correct. Yep. Jennifer, congratulations. You got a $50 gift card.
Sweet.
Yay, Jennifer. And that's a cruise ship that's coming this next month.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Awesome. I think Pitbull's on the inaugural cruise as well.
Oh, I did not know.
Very interesting. Great. Curious to see why Disney has left. Mickey's gone north. I wonder why.
Yes, he just couldn't.
Jennifer will reach out to you with a card. Congratulations again. And Andrew, thank you very much for all that you've done this past year. You've been amazing, truly informed and educated and enlightened us on all the information. I wish you and your family all the best as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And now up with a chock full of information. I think you'll probably cover it for the next 20 minutes or so, if not more. Ceci, you are on. Oh, I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, look at that. This is what we're here for, right? The beach.
Indeed.
The beach, that beautiful view of the beach. And we provide so many wonderful things for our guests when they are here. First of all, I want to thank you, Miguel, and the concierges. Last night, the gala, it was so lovely to see all of the concierges and everybody involved in the industry having so much fun, because you make everybody else's experience such a great time when they come down here. Very smooth, everything. You attend to their needs. My niece is here now and she's working at the front desk, and she said our job is to make people comfortable and to take care of people. And I thought that was very well said. She's really enjoying herself at the front desk. I see a lot of people that are on the chat that are friends, and I just really want to wish everybody a happy holiday. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to see every single one of you, but I love seeing you on this webinar. What, 3 years now, Miguel?
Yes.
Yes.
3 years.
3 years. It's really been lovely. And I also want to thank people because I have always been met with people willing to give up a room, give up a meal, entertain some of our guests. That's part of it. When we bring in activations and special people into town, they need their accommodations. And a lot of these nonprofits have a hard time, and no one has ever said no. So I really want to send out a big thank you to everybody who's helped and pitched in when we put together some of these really wonderful activations that are good things for our guests to to partake in when they're in town. And so I have I can, for the first time ever, I'm going to share my screen. Can we do that?
Yes, ma'am. Allow me a second. We'll
Thank
take care of
you.
that right now. Let's see. Go ahead and
Yeah,
share your screen.
it's just a really special time in Miami Beach right now. Uh, can I do it? Let's
Yes, go
see.
ahead.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. I think you can see it, right?
Yes,
Oh,
we
good.
did.
Okay, so there's so much going on Ocean Drive that we decided to compile them all and put them in one long kind of flyer so that everybody can kind of see it at a glance. It's not us, the Ocean Drive Association. We're just compiling all of it. Some of it we're doing, some of it the city's doing, some of it outside entities. The Promenade Music Series, as you see, we do that every single Sunday. We've been doing it for a little over 2 years. We're starting our third calendar year, and we booked all 52 Sundays for next year already. We'll be coming out with a comprehensive flyer, but we are going to be having something on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve to a lot of us. So we're moving it up to 4, and it is a sing along. So there are a lot of guests that are here that are visiting because it's the holidays. They're not home for Christmas, but you can send them over to Lummis Park for a Christmas holiday sing along. I think it'll be really fun. It's the third time that we're doing this, and I actually print out lyric sheets because we have people from other countries that don't know the words. So we will have lyric sheets, and it will be a lovely sing along happening right there at the Promenade Music Series, which is right at 14th Place, but it's in the middle of the park. Let's see if I can move this up. Here we go. I thought I had this down. Sorry. Okay. Then we had Art Week. We had Scope and Untitled Art Fairs, which is already passed, and we have that every single year. Then we had the Metro Interactive Art Train, which was BB's. That's passed as well, but we are the second year in a row that we're one of their stops. And it was a really interesting interactive way to bring people over to Ocean Drive and see that art train. No Vacancy just ended. That's a program of the city. We had 2 of them in on Ocean Drive. And we have, let's see, I don't know how I can move that. Oh, there we go. Then the city is putting on this wonderful drone show. This is the second year that they've done it. It's important to note that it was for last week, and it got rescheduled because of the weather, but we are going to see that happen on December 21st at 7 p.m. right there at 12th Street. So this is a city project, and they're bringing it to us. It's really lovely. I encourage everybody to come out to that. There is going to be a special concert at the Betsy also on the 21st, which is 2 pianists that are world renowned. So that is different from every single day that the Betsy has live music. This is going to be a special concert. Then very excited about the Holiday Festival of Lights. The Miami Music Festival was granted funding from the GEO Bond for Art and Culture, and they have this wonderful mapping light projection. They did it on Lincoln Road. It was also rescheduled from the Gabriel for last week to, then it will be now the 29th and the 30th. It'll be on the Betsy on the December 22nd, 23rd. So it's not just the Betsy, it's 4 or 5 buildings. This is something that they talk about in Europe, that they talk about going to in Europe. It's special and it's a memory, and we're doing it right here on Ocean Drive. There will be some live music. There will be the Miami Music Festival singers that will be part of this. They did a small version of it for Valentine's Day. This is really going to be spectacular. So we're doing it on the north side of Ocean Drive over 4 buildings, the 22nd and the 23rd. And we're also then doing it at the Gabriel, which is the south side of Ocean Drive. The Gabriel in and of itself is 4 buildings. So it'll be on the facade of the Gabriel, again, with live music. I encourage people to come down and check it out. Send people, family friendly, blankets, bring your own chairs, bring yourself a picnic. It's really going to be spectacular. I hope that this will be a tradition that we do every single year on Ocean Drive. We're actually also looking at adding a 3rd location for next year so that we have a full December of weekends that you can come and do something family friendly on Ocean Drive with the Festival of Lights. I think we're going to be known for this in a longer traditional way. So I really encourage people to come out. It's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, we have our New Year's weekend. We usually do it for 2 or 3 days. This is going to be 4 days since New Year's Eve is on a Sunday. And so we have Friday, Saturday, which will be the Festival of Lights, Sunday, which is New Year's Eve, and all the cafes will be extended with their New Year's Eve specials. And then Sunday night at midnight will be the fireworks. Believe it or not, the number one question I get is, what time are the fireworks on New Year's Eve? They're midnight, because that's when it turns into New Year's Day. And then the city also, for the couple of years in a row, will be sponsoring the concert with a full orchestra in the park on New Year's Day. So this is part of the Miami Beach Onstage program. The city has been doing this. It's a gift to, you know, all of the residents and our visitors to have New Year's Day, this fantastic orchestra happening in the park. So also I encourage people to come out to brunch on Ocean Drive, because the cafes will be extended for New Year's Day, and then stay and have some fun at the orchestra at 5:30. That again is right at 11th Street in that area where they have the clearing over in the park. So this is what's happening in December. We love having a robust thing that anybody can come to Ocean Drive throughout the month of December and have some wonderful art and culture, some wonderful family-friendly activities. These are the kind of things that are small urban placemaking that change the dynamic of an area. And we've been working really hard, all of us, to do that and to bring the magic back to Ocean Drive. And then in January, I think most people know that I'm on the board of the South Beach Jazz Festival. When we started this several years ago, it was about a disability awareness program. Power Access is a disability awareness organization, and they are the ones that put on the South Beach Jazz Festival. And many of the musicians have disabilities. The first year we had David Sanborn at the Colony Theater, and it was sold out. And he told his story. David Sanborn is one of the greatest saxophone jazz players in living today. He sold out, standing room only, and he told his story that he was born when he was younger. He had polio, and because he had polio, the doctors all told him, his parents, that it would be good for him to pick up a woodwind instrument to help with his respiratory therapy. And if he hadn't had polio and he hadn't had to have that therapy, he would never have picked up the saxophone. And today he's one of the greatest living saxophone players in the world. So it's an interesting story. It is what we build the Jazz Festival around. It is not what people can't do. It's about what people can do. So I encourage you now, some of our headliners are just incredible. So I encourage you to go to this website. You can see what we have. We have returning to us after a few years, Matthew Whitaker. We also then have, here we go, at the Bandshell, Alfredo Rodriguez and friends. This is sold out at the Faina Theater. She's our headliner, really, an evening with Cecile McLaurin Salvan. It is a small venue. It is sold out at the Faina Theater, but it's turning out to be one of our marquee events. And then, of course, we have the free events, right? The wonderful public events so that the public can enjoy on Lincoln Road at the 1111 side. So it's starting on Sunday. This goes backwards for some reason. So Sunday evening, moving up from 6:30 to 8. Here we go. Chuck Bergeron. I'm going to go through this quickly. Tal Cohen, if you haven't heard Tal Cohen, he is one of the most renowned pianists, and he is phenomenal. He plays at the Betsy solo piano, but when he gets to play at a festival and he brings his group together, it is really something to hear. He's one of my favorite musicians, and he's quite recognized and travels all over the world. We're lucky to have these people that live right here in our backyard and participate with us ongoing. We have another group, the Smoogies. Prior to that, we have Brandon Goldberg Trio. And we start off with the Spirit of the Goodwill Band, which is always lovely. These wonderful people, they all get together. They're singers, they have a band, and you know, they're adults, and they really get into it and they love it. It's a wonderful way to start the day. And it is part of Goodwill. Then we have a stage this Saturday, January 6th, is Jazz for Tomorrow student stage. But these students are amazing. They have such great talent, and this is all directed by Nicole Yarling. And she steps in and starts playing as well. So this weekend is going to be a wonderful weekend for jazz at the Bandshell on Lincoln Road. A couple of the different private events, but Lincoln Road is kind of the featured time for this. So I encourage everybody to send their people. People come down from the cold and they want to be outside and they want to hear wonderful music. So I encourage everybody to send people down to the Jazz Festival. It's always been one of our local favorites, and it just continues to grow. And then after that is Art Deco Weekend. Let's see if I can find it. I can't because Art Deco Weekend is, here we go. The 47th Art Deco Weekend is from January 12th, 13, and 14. So it's always Martin Luther King weekend. They have a lot of things going on. Architectural tours, of course, the antique show, the artisanal market. They're going to have an artisan market as they normally do. Then they also surround what is outdoors, the market. They have they close the street, Ocean Drive. It is a wonderful opportunity to come and tour and see the Art Deco buildings. And then they really kind of encompass all of that with some cultural seminars. It's an opportunity to go and listen to people talk about the art, the culture, Art Deco, things that are happening, advocating for historic places, which we all know right now is a question. We've heard about the Clevelander ownership looking to use the state act to refurbish and develop the Clevelander, which would take it out of its historic nature. So right now, the idea is to listen to why it's important to save these historic places is really on point. So this is what's happening again, Martin Luther King weekend. So we've got a great December. We have a great January. Then we start getting into things like the boat show and food and wine. So many different wonderful things happening because it's spring and it's Miami Beach. And who doesn't want to be here? Look at our beach, right? So with that, I think that's it for me, Miguel.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tessie. Lots of great information. Do you have a trivia question for the group?
Oh, well, let's make it really hard.
Good. We like hard.
No, it's not. What time are the fireworks on New Year's Eve?
Oh, that one's easy. Hannah, once again, you get it. Excellent. Midnight. You know what? I think that people get confused because it's midnight on New Year's Eve, but then it's 9 o'clock on July 4th.
I know.
I think that's what throws everybody off. Why? I don't understand. Why would you have fireworks at 9 o'clock on New Year's Eve? Crazy. All right. Congratulations, Hannah. Let's wrap this up. So, again, we will have another call next month. Thank you very much for joining us. We will be sending you the show notes later today from the late, great Dr. Maya Angelou. And this goes in play with what Ceci's niece said about the front desk. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. Have a great and happy holiday. Make commitments for 2024 and stick to them. Till next year, next month. Take care of everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye, Andrew. Bye, Ceci. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer.
From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho, and everywhere in between, Miami's a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us.